You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. Big day for the Cincinnati Bengals as they continue counting down the days to the end of camp and get started with the 2022 season against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Los Angeles Rams are in town. Yes, the defending Super Bowl champions came to Cincinnati, and Dave Lapham was there. Dave, talk about the day. A lot of things going on.
Yeah, a lot of things going on. There's no question about it. And Jessie Bates reported back to the football team, was in the locker room today with his teammates. He had a press conference before practice. He and Joe Burrow both. Joe Burrow led it off, and then Jessie Bates was up next, and he talked about not being able to consummate a contract, and at this point it's going to have to be at the conclusion of the season. And his focus right now is to have the best year that he can possibly have, and let the chips fall where they may. And he even threw out there that there were probably a couple of teams or more that explored trade possibilities, but the team wasn't going to go in that direction. They want Jessie Bates. Jessie Bates would like to be in Cincinnati as a Cincinnati Bengal. There's no question about that. And it sounded like one of the reasons that he wanted to get back at this point in time was he said he wanted to start establishing relationships with some of the younger players and veteran players that weren't with the football team last year. And he wants to be part of that process and start building bonds with those guys and finding out what makes them tick and letting them know what makes him tick, and just becoming a good teammate and a guy that can be relied on and trusted by his teammates. And I'll tell you, Dave, with him back in camp, we talk about the Bengals' three wide receivers all the time, and it's a phenomenal group. There's no question about it. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. What about the safety position? The three safeties. I mean, got a three-headed monster at wide receiver, and now with Jessie Bates back in camp with Vonn Bell and with Dax Hill, you have a three-headed monster at the safety position as well. Dax Hill just keeps showing up and making plays. So I think it's going to be real exciting. I think when he sat in that suite and saw the action, and I think it just he just had a longing to get back with his teammates. And I also think that he did get put on the commissioner exempt list like anticipated. Thought that would be the case. So he's going to have to just ramp up. He can't. He said during the presser, if I had to play this week, if I had to play in a week, I could do it. And he could. He's in great shape. But there's conditioning, and then there's football shape, like we talked about. And you want to ramp up into that football shape. And, if he were to play against the Pittsburgh Steelers this Sunday, when he woke up Monday morning, he'd have football rigor mortis, man. It would be brutal. So, you have to start to anchor your pads and get contact and wake up a little sore one morning and work your way through it and get in there and start to wind yourself into that football shape. Now he's got some time to do it. It's not going to be a matter of, just 2 or 3 days or a week. He's got more than a couple of weeks to get that done, which is I think what he wanted. So there's a lot of good reasons for him to be back. He is back. And then Joe Burrow led the press conference off, and he was talking about some really good things too. I asked him if you had to play a regular season game on Sunday against the Rams instead of a regular season game instead of a preseason game on Saturday night, could you do it? He said, yeah, I could go play. He said, would I play as well as I would want to? Probably not. There's a process, and I've still got a training camp process left, and I've got a couple of weeks to go through that process, and I'm gonna sharpen myself. And I think Joe lost as many as 15 pounds. He's probably gained back about 10. He's got 2/3 of it back. He's got just about 5 pounds to go. He's done a great job with his diet and training, getting his body back. It looks like he's got some of that muscle tone coming back, and at his age, it's going to come back quickly. And he was also talking about, I asked him a question about, when you go to the sideline and you talk to your wide receivers, you talk to coaches about adjustments and routes and how they're covering people and routes you might want to call. And he said, yeah, I'll tell you, the quarterbacks and wide receivers and coaches, it's a total open line of communication at all times in all three phases. And as a result of that, players feel total ownership. Their input is being heard and evaluated and basically appreciated by the coaching staff. So it's a good dynamic that's going on. And then obviously the Rams come to town, Dave, today. They flew in last night. They get in about 8:30, 9 o'clock to the hotel last night. They had a walkthrough this morning. And then this afternoon they were out in the football field together, and really good work. I'm telling you, it was a really good pace. Nobody was on the ground. You want to stay on your feet, but you want to play at a pretty good tempo and as close to game speed as you possibly can. And they did do that. And I'll tell you, it was a give and take. It wasn't like one team dominated another team, but both teams won their share of battles and lost their share of battles and need to improve on things. But one thing that was very evident to me, I thought defensively, both football teams were ahead of the offense. And it's understandable because the Rams don't play their starters in the preseason either. And that's what Zach basically is along the same philosophy as Sean McVay. He's not going to play his starters. So the number ones, when they were going against each other, they haven't really gotten that many snaps against an opponent at almost a game tempo. So usually when you start out like that, the defense is ahead of the offense. And I thought the Rams defense won more pass rush snaps than they lost in the one-on-one pass rush. I thought the Bengals defense won more pass rush snaps than they lost in the one-on-one pass rush. In fact, the Rams offensive line to me looked a little bit slow. They looked a step slow. The Bengals got the edge on them very, very quickly. And then during the course of the football part of it, the final one of the final situational scenarios was the Rams on a 2-minute drill. And they ran two 2-minute drills that were both ended by interception by the Cincinnati Bengals defense. So that was a good sign to me, that they played that well. And all through every phase of the work, I thought the Rams had a hard time moving people and running the football. I thought the Bengals had the same situation. I thought the defense handled the offenses more readily than the offenses handled the defenses up front. I will say, though, that watching number 99, Aaron Donald, in person, this guy, man, I don't think he's 6'2", and they list him at 260 pounds, and he might be that. But, man, this guy is explosive. His hands are a blur. They're so fast. I know he trains with martial arts, and it's unbelievable what he does with his hands. So when you're pass protecting or run blocking that guy one-on-one, it's a chore now. And I was talking to some Rams coaches after the workout, and they said, he's got another gear. That wasn't his game gear. I'm like, whew, jeez. But I'll tell you, Volson and everybody that worked against Aaron Donald got as good a look as you can get. There's nobody in the National Football League that poses as many problems to you as Aaron Donald does. And he lines up all over the place, up and down the line of scrimmage. He's an equal opportunity butt kicker. There's no question about that. I mean, this guy, and I think during the season, regular season, it's going to be, let me try this guy, let me try this offensive lineman, let me find where my best matchup is for the moves that I've got. Let me try to find the fish and see if I can, identify him, and let's abuse this guy, and then make adjustments and double team and have to take care of me in that regard. And so everybody got a crack at Aaron Donald and during team period, and he is a challenge, there's no doubt. The other thing that's good for the Bengals offense is this is a different style of defense than they've been working against with their own people and their own schemes all training camp. The Rams, they run a very soft coverage. They run like bubble coverage on the backside, and they play very soft. And then they break on the football. They come downhill and break on the football. They can do that because the pass rush is so effective. The quarterback has to get the ball out of his hands quickly. They're being led by Aaron Donald in that regard. And, they do a masterful job of it, and it's an adjustment that you have to make offensively at the quarterback position as well as receivers. And, the offensive line has to do the best job they can to give the quarterback time, but it's a different look. It's a different scenario. I mean, Ramsey does a tremendous job on the outside. He and Jamar Chase were having a great battle. Jamar Chase won his share. Ramsey won his share. And that was a sign of, in my mind, it being two good football teams. Nobody dominated the other one. So I think both of these teams are going to be pretty good once again. And it was good work. There's no question about it. And I think, they're going to go look at tape, make some adjustments they need to make, and go back out after each other again tomorrow. And it'll be another really high-tempo, good practice day. So this, like we thought, this is going to be where the starters, quote, for both teams as such, are going to knock a lot of the rust and dust off and anchor their pads and get ready for their respective openers. And it was good to watch today. I'll tell you another thing too, Dave, watching Cooper Kupp do his thing and Matthew Stafford with him as the quarterback. These guys now, they run option routes as well as I've ever seen. Cooper Kupp comes off the line of scrimmage, and the thing that this guy does, he's not like world-class speed, but this guy is an incredible route runner because he gives no indicators. He comes off the line of scrimmage about 8 to 10 yards, and he can be going any direction, running any route in the route tree. He gives no tips. He doesn't dip his shoulder. He doesn't stagger his gait. It is unbelievable to watch him. It's like, what is he going to do? You have no idea. And he gets the defensive backs back on their heels. And a lot of times, they'll run option routes based on how defensive backs react to him, 10 yards down the field. And I'll tell you, it's like he and Stafford have ESP. I mean, they are on the same page on these option routes. And it could look bad if they aren't, because the quarterback's throwing the football in a spot where the receiver is in a totally different area. He read it one way and the quarterback read it another on these option routes. These guys never misread it in terms of being on the same page with each other. It is phenomenal to watch. And as a result, Cooper Kupp led the NFL Triple Crown last year, 145 catches, almost 2,000 yards, 16 touchdown passes. Led the NFL in all three categories. And, I mean, he was the leading receiver by far on the football team. I mean, they didn't even have another receiver that I think caught 70 passes. That I think the next highest receiver was Higbee with like 60-some-odd catches. So teams would shift coverage to him. They tilt it that way. I mean, they double him. They still run their option routes and beat people up. And Bengals know about it. He got MVP in the Super Bowl. Watching those two operate, I mean, you're not going to find a tougher tandem to deal with in a practice than those two guys. And like I said, in the 2-minute drills, the last 2-minute drills of the workout, Bengals came up with interceptions on both of those periods. So that was a good sign. So there were pluses, there were minuses. All in all, though, it was great work. No major injuries to speak of. Noel, the young guard, looked like he tweaked something, but he didn't leave the practice field. He tried to walk it off. So I think they came out of it. Both sides came out of it pretty darn healthy. So see what unfolds tomorrow. But I think day one, I think both coaching staffs, organizations, I think they're very pleased with what transpired out there on the practice fields at Paycor Stadium.
Dave, during the live stream yesterday, a lot of questions about that offensive line for the Bengals and the fact that getting the starters together. Any updates on Collins and Jackson Carman?
Well, Collins played about half the snaps when they were running team things, and so he's ramping up a little bit. He definitely, he's knocking off the rust and dust. I think, anchoring the pads as we talked about. You have to start somewhere, and this is a good group to start against. There's no question about it. A lot of times he was out there in pass protection, working against Leonard Floyd, who's a very, very good football player. So that's a good guy to work against. And Jackson Carman is back. He's back at practice, and what he has to do is on a snap-by-snap basis, keep his pad level low. He got bull rushed a little bit today, a couple of times that, he just has to realize that he's as big and strong as he is. There are guys big and strong in the National Football League, too, and you have to keep that pad level down. So that's one thing that Volson does a real good job of, I think. He does. If he doesn't keep his pad level down, it's an upset. Whereas Jackson has problems with it a higher percentage of the time. So I think that's something that he has to really, really focus on, is make sure you keep that pad level down. And now Zach Taylor was asked at the press conference today that he had his left guard position has it been decided, and he said no, it hasn't. We're still in training camp mode, and it hasn't been decided. And it hasn't. And you can't, if you're Cordell Volson, you can't say, okay, I'm the starting left guard. He's not. He's not thinking that. And I don't think, at least I hope, that Jackson Carman's not thinking he's the starting left guard, because he hasn't been ordained either. It is a wide open competition. Did Cordell Volson do anything to hurt himself in that competition from the last game's tape? No, I don't think so. So now Jackson Carman has to respond, and he has to put some good snaps on tape against the Rams here in these two practices, and then in the game as well. And Cordell Volson's trying to do the same thing. So that battle rages on, and they're not going to name. I don't think they're going to name a starter. They may not name one until they have to name one, because you don't want the Pittsburgh Steelers necessarily knowing exactly who might be playing that left guard position. That's not a huge matchup position where, oh boy, it's a mystery. But if you can keep them guessing a little bit as to who the starter is at that left guard position, so be it. I think, honestly, it's not for that reason. It's not to keep the Pittsburgh Steelers in a guess mode. They just haven't decided yet. Nobody's grabbed that position by the neck and said it's mine. Or if he has, they're not about to declare it at this point in time.
Another injury, go over to defense. Eli Apple, the status of Eli Apple, as far as you talked about the performance of the defense today. What is the latest on Eli Apple as far as when he may be available?
Yeah, he's not going to do any work this week. He had fluid taken out of his thigh. I guess just like a Charlie horse type thing that's been bothering him a little bit. He was probably contacted right there, square on the thigh, and had some fluid, blood, whatever that they had to drain out of there, get out of there. So he's shutting it down. He won't be participating against the Rams. He won't be playing obviously in the game as well. But I think I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to make the dance for the opener. You got 2 weeks, actually 2.5. You play against the Rams on Saturday. You have the whole following week of practice, no game on Labor Day week, and then another full week of practice after that. There's no doubt in my mind that Eli Apple will be able to line up against the Pittsburgh Steelers and help at that cornerback position.
Players are watching because you've got next week on Tuesday, I believe at 4:00, the rosters have got to get trimmed down. And talk about how hard it's going to be for this Bengals coaching staff to make those final cuts.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's going to be difficult. And the guy who's holding the ace in the hole in most cases is going to be Darren Simmons. Special teams are going to rule the day in a lot of these final cuts. And, the coaches, it's like, all right, what guys do you think you have to try to imagine who you think might clear waivers if you want to bring that guy back to the practice squad. So you start to play that game a little bit. And then, the scouting department is going through everybody's roster and with a fine-tooth comb and projecting who might be there on the waiver wire. But as we talked about before, the Bengals are 31st on that waiver wire. It's just like the draft. It's based on how you finished. And the Bengals finished 31st and the Rams finished 32nd because they won the Super Bowl at the Bengals lost to them in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, it's how many players that you're thinking might get to you will actually get to you. And, so that might be a factor in, geez, do I let this guy go? Because will there be anything out on the waiver wire that will improve what he might give us? Or will he give us enough special team snaps? So, yeah, it's always a very, very difficult process. And like I said, from a player standpoint, you're not just competing against the last player. It's me or this other guy as the extra wide receiver, the extra defensive back, or the extra linebacker. It's all of it. You're competing for the last roster spots, and it's going to include all the position groups, not just yours. So it's a very, very competitive situation. It's a very difficult puzzle for the every player personnel department to put together at this stage. And again, when you're claiming at number 31 off the waiver wire, it's a whole new ballgame as opposed to when you were claiming at number 1 or claiming at number 5 when you drafted Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Those years. It's a much different dynamic. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
You've been in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. If you're looking for a new career, be sure to check out firststarlogistics.com. Dave and I can both attest. It's a fun place to be around. It seems like the workers every day have a great time when they show up for work. So if you're looking for some of the highest salaries and commissions in the industry, be sure to go firststarlogistics.com to learn more. Dave, as always, appreciate the time and look forward to seeing you again.
You got it, Dave. We'll see what we get here against the Rams on Thursday. Get ready for that preseason game, 6 o'clock tilt on Saturday, and then see what takes place early next week, Tuesday at 4, like you say. I don't think it's always the case. The final cut is not the end of the tweaking of the roster, and I think that might be the case this year. It might not be that final roster that presents itself at 4 o'clock on Tuesday. It may not be the final roster that the Bengals are going to have going into that opener against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it'll probably be the final roster of the active players of 46. You know, they're going to deactivate players on game day, and all the tweaking that takes place is usually on the back end of that roster for sure. So we'll see how it all unfolds.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.